Professor, we see there is a gathering of people here. Perhaps to start off with, we want to understand who are the stakeholders who are here and what is their interest that has brought them to be discussing what they are discussing. What is it that they are discussing?
Okay, the people who are here, these are members of a subcommittee of the Political Actors Dialogue called Polad. It's a subcommittee called the Governance and Legislative Reform Subcommittee. Polad has various subcommittees. There's a special subcommittee that has been set up by Polad to look at political and electoral reforms that we must put in place ahead of 2023 elections. You are aware that this country has been going through so many issues that are being raised, that there is lack of political reform, there is no progress with the constitution. So each political party in Poland has seconded a person to come to this committee. And then so we are looking at the kind of reforms that we want to see in place, and then to have the constitution amended, the electoral act amended, etc. Here we are starting with the government gazetted constitutional amendment bill that has a number of provisions that they've suggested. So we are discussing those. We are putting in the things that we'll agree with and things that we disagree with. But the overall point that we have made as this Polad subcommittee is that we would hope that there is a delay to the constitutional amendment bill until such time that we have, which is not a long time, we have as the political actors looked at all proposed amendments. Some of the amendments will impact on the constitution and other amendments will impact on the electoral act. So that's already you saw the discussion that was taking place this morning, is that there's a proposal to remove the running mate clause in the constitution. And then you replace it with a situation where if a president dies, the political party of the former or late president gives us a president. And I think you had, we've all said that is not the correct thing to put in a constitution. Let's rely on our institution. If the president dies in the remaining term, let's go to a national institution, which is parliament, that must then sit as an electoral college to elect a president who finishes the term. This is the kind of discussion we are having.
Talking about them waiting for the gazetting of that, what time frames do you have in mind?
Well, we think that by June 2020 or July, we would have finished all these deliberations. All we need is about 3 months or more to be able to come up with a complete package of proposed reforms. Then we send them to the government. Then if the government agrees with some of those, then we have one bill that goes to parliament. Unlike what would happen now, we have a constitutional amendment which is going to be constitutional amendment number 2. Then when Polad has finished his process, because Polad is meant to come up with proposals that will improve the electoral and legislative framework, then you have another constitutional amendment number 3. Then at perhaps 2021 you have another constitutional amendment number 4. That's, we think that is not desirable. The best, because there's nothing to really rush for at the moment. You can wait. If you look at the proposals to do away with the running mate clause, the devolution clause, all the things that are in the bill now can wait 6-7 months until we come up with proposals that will improve the electoral and legislative framework.
Maybe from the discussions, I've observed that maybe members are warming up to the idea of removing the running mate.
Well, the members are not just, it's not about warming up to the idea of removing the running mate. They are warming up to the idea of ensuring that we find a mechanism of how to fill the post of a president in between elections. Because the running mate clause, which is not working at the moment, is supposed to be a succession clause. When the president dies, the person who was the running mate automatically becomes president for the remaining term. But then that clause has never operated here. It was suspended for 10 years. And then there were people that were feeling really that it's a dangerous clause in the sense that the person who is a running mate, who is there and waiting to become president, may actually harm the existing president. There's a possibility like that. And then so you get instability, because if you know that I'm going to be the next president and it's guaranteed by the constitution, you tend to create problems. And so say, look, let's take that out. But let's come up with a very clear clause as to who then takes over. And we are warming to the idea that that must be done by parliament, not to leave it to a political party, as is being the current position and as also is being suggested. I think you saw the examples we gave. The first time President Mnangagwa became president, he didn't come from parliament or from the people. He came from ZANU-PF. And we were lucky that there was no instability governing his succession. But knowing how political parties behave, we know even the opposition, other opposition political parties, succession to the next person is not problematic. The biggest political opposition at the moment is in court. We are actually awaiting a Supreme Court decision to determine who ought to have taken over after Morgan Tsvangirai. Now imagine if that party were in government at that time. These are the issues we say. I'm sure it's now adopted by this subcommittee at this stage that the clause on succession must refer to issues to Parliament rather than to the political parties. Thanks.
Is linked to the succession clause because to some extent the running mate is meant to facilitate a succession, but it was not operational now as far as this constitution was concerned, and it did. Because in this particular constitution, it did not provide for a running mate, and it provided for a different succession process. So this is supposed to replace, to some extent, it was supposed to replace, to some extent, the provisions that are operational as of now. We had quite a serious debate around it. I think the issue of the running mate, we had no problem in removing it. Didn't spend too much time. There was an agreement that as far as we are concerned, it's not a subject that we think is important for a number of reasons. The first one is that we said instead of it creating a form of stability, in certain instances it can actually create instability. Our thinking was apanamun president and achi femele, so to speak, where they are constantly thinking there's already somebody who is wanting to take over my position. Secondly, we looked at the best practices in the region. And we said, if you look at Malawi was our best example, where the running mate clause was in their constitution. You remember at the time that the Mutarika, of the other Mutarika, because this one is Peter, Bingu. When Bingu passed away, many of you would understand the chaos that emanated, including the fact that there are stories that the body was carried from Malawi to South Africa. He was already dead, but they had to pretend that he was alive so that some of these processes would be negotiated. And the difficult thing was, at that time, the running mate had then gone off and formed their own political party. But from a constitutional point of view, they were still a running mate because they had been a running mate to be. So even for purposes of succession, usually there's an argument that you want a running mate so that you can facilitate smooth transition. But we actually said that example, Bingu, Joyce Banda, thank you. Joyce Banda gave us a typical example of how it's a myth or a misnomer to say a running mate facilitates the succession thing. So we say, running mate goes. So to some extent we agreed with the amendment, proposed amendment for Yekurumuva running mate. However, we then said we still have a problem with the issue around succession, because you'll find that in that same amendment, it speaks to the clause adopts the provisions of paragraph 14 of the 6th schedule to the Constitution as the operative provisions relating to the question of the succession to the president. So that succession clause brings in issue a political party. And we started saying it's problematic in our opinion in a constitution, to bring in processes that involve political parties, because we can't govern how political parties will handle issue of succession. And we have had numerous examples, won't even go into details, of both within our own country and elsewhere, where you are saying a political party should define succession within his own political party. The interesting one is, I can say it anyway, it's my own political party, MDC. Until we had people had to go to court around what does the constitution say and what. So if you start bringing chaos that we know generally is within political parties into a constitution, then you are creating chaos into a constitution. So our proposal is that we come up with a different succession, which in principle, without going into the proper drafting issues, would allow Parliament to become the electoral college that appoints the next president. So succession is set up within the context of Parliament. And our argument is that, let's assume we are dealing with the same with Zimbabwe. If you were to come to Parliament, that political party would sponsor, isn't it, the candidate. So you wouldn't have to go for by-elections, generally. You would then, it's easier, it's neater, and you are using a particular institution which is recognized, which is Parliament. So you provide for that succession to be dealt with by Parliament. So Parliament then sits as an electoral college in terms of then nominating or electing a president to finish off the term. That was the proposal that we had. So you are finding two proposals at it. First is the proposal where we agree running mate needs to go as an agreement, but we are saying, however, let's deal with the issue of succession in the event of the president. Because we are thinking with this provision was basically because we want to try to delay mischief in succession. And because that's what people are saying. We are bringing in the running mate so that we can create stability around succession. So if that is what we want to address, we are then saying let's use Parliament as an electoral college. So let me stop there, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So Dauda would debate the first proposal. I think she has explained very well. For the media, you also understand the bill, the one that has been gazetted, wants to take away the running mate clause. Like she has correctly pointed out, running mate, its only role is succession. Announce running mate is the person you go with co-election, and then announce there automatically the vice president. Then you cannot fire that person. That's another consequence of a running mate. If you go on a vice president or a running mate and he might be elected, you cannot fire them. You go whether Mabura Zagadi, whatever has happened between the two of you, you cannot fire a running mate. And this is the person who then takes over automatically upon the death or removal or resignation of the president. A president may leave office 3 ways: resigning, dying, or being removed. Those who start is you resign, or you die, or you are removed. So if those 3 things happen, who becomes president? Under the Constitution provision E, which is not operating now, automatically the person running mate becomes the president for the remaining term. Those will go to America. And that's the position that 1 or 2 other countries have adopted in the example she has given. So the bill will not take away that. President running mate run for office, elected. After he being elected, he appoints his vice president or his vice presidents too. And then also he is in a position to fire those. In the event of his death, it's not automatic that the vice president becomes the president. I'm going to act for up to 90 days. Then the party president will then nominate someone else to become the president for the remaining term. So we are proposing that we can adopt the removal of the running mate, but we do not adopt that the next president who finishes the term be a person who is brought simply nominated by the political party that of the former president. but you should go to a formal process. You go to parliament. Because your institution in Yeka, even if it is controlled by political parties, but let's not recognize political parties for the constitution. Let's simply say that if the president dies, whoever is the vice president acts for a few days as parliament sits as an electoral college, then they vote for the president who will finish the remaining term. No proposal I took it. And we are saying it is very problematic, like she has correctly pointed out, because we don't control political parties. Right. Let's now debate those issues. You can follow any format of debating. Either you can ask clarification, you can debate. All is allowed. Let's have that. It's open now.
Or you can agree with us.
All right. Yes.
Okay, I just want to understand on the term on which the parliament will elect a president. I just want to know the criteria which will be used by the parliament to elect the president, and also what will happen to the cabinet that will be playing around with the president. Will it be dissolved, or the president which will be elected by the parliament will just wait with that cabinet?
Okay, those are details. The law is always clear that when there's a new president, the cabinet is dissolved automatically whenever there is a new president. But not when there's an acting, before you then elect the president. The cabinet remains until you get a new president.
So, what about the criteria?
Yes, I'll answer that as well. We have not gone into the criteria at the moment. Though are not my detail here. You were here, but I explain as a detail the principle. Here we are discussing the principle. The president is died. Who becomes the president for the remaining term? Until we have a 5-year election, 5-year term, we do an election. Then within a year, the president who have elected dies, and it has 4 years to go to the next election. Do we go to a by-election to elect a president who will serve for 4 years? Or we go by what is in the proposed bill, that Nongomila party president we are found, the president who has died. Then the party just says, well, our president has died. We are giving you the name of X, make him president. Because that's what is currently happening, which is what happened with the president when we had the resignation of President Mugabe 2017. ZANU-PF simply gave us the name ED, and they met ED their president, and the ED was sworn into office as president, and the constitution was allowing that. With ZANU-PF will give us a name, and the reason why we had him is because the constitution said the party president, they not by. So question criteria did not. I know what question was criteria must not just arise because at the parliament. It will arise whichever method. But who does it? Do we go to a by-election? Or do we say, well, parliament can go to Israel, and then we'll lay out the criteria that parliament will use? Or we do a by-election, which many countries believe is not necessary if you are not also electing my MPs. Zambia used to do that with a by-election. If now happened Rupia Banda at some point, Agapinda for finish a term. And many countries think it's expensive to have a presidential election to elect for 2 years or for 1 year. That's where we are at the moment. That's where the issue is. I hope I've answered it. Should we say parliament, we might discuss by detail. Will they elect an MP or they will elect any Zimbabwean? I'm sure it will be any Zimbabwean who qualifies to be president can be elected by parliament to finish the term. That's what obviously will happen on that.
Thank you.
Perhaps to just add on, you know that's what happens with the speaker, isn't it? A speaker is elected by parliament. So both houses sit as one house. And they elect a what? they elect a speaker. Or National Assembly, meter, you elect a speaker. Now that we are at bicameral Senate, you elect a president, we Senate. So, but like he's saying, you may want to have that discussion and say, do both houses sit in those circumstances to elect a president, or does the National Assembly sit on its own? Those will be the details around how you are defining election year. But initially, it's the principle. Principle is, do we move that election, that succession process to Parliament? Because currently it is with a political party.
Yeah, correct. I think, Chinzwaiga, let's say, very good discussion here to now with Japan. The principle, no paramuda, you are a Zimbabwean. The president elected by the people has died or has resigned. Where do you get this president who finishes the term before the next election? Do you leave it to the political party president, or you say, my political party, my club saying, go to Parliament? We know Parliament is controlled by political parties, but as a country, let's think in terms of Parliament or institutions rather than political parties. Perhaps I'm sure we can give my examples. Ganima two political parties are very dominant. More how difficult it was. So, ZANU-PF, we of course accepted that they gave us a name. But if we had problems, one group had actually fired ED. Not just as vice president, but as one party. So technically, he was no longer a member of ZANU-PF. Truth was not and he was out of the country. Then suddenly a group meets what is the Central Committee. I'm sure I is going to chairperson and Yagachewana Pof. Ugatasa constitution yao abatonda chair and Vamocha chair. But I zone as a TV. Not one example. We are discussing constitution here and we give examples of where we want to go as a country. There could have been a serious problem in this country if within those who were remaining, G40, but let's say they were not agreeing. Meeting a Central Committee, there was no notice for that meeting, a constitution, but they were able to then. So they had to go through a very rigorous process, readmitting ED as a member of the party, not only readmitting him. I don't know whether they did that, I'm not sure, but I think whether they did simply say, I recognize he is firing. But ED is back, they are watching, President Wedu, Central Committee but people were watching that time, but party, all Zimbabweans will have no say, they will just be watching. For the first time, people had to go and check the constitution of ZANU-PF. In the Pandagata office, professor of constitutional law, but the people but I got this. Could you say, look for one BBC? You also have to say, look, this is what is going to happen. I did my power, but then that's what can happen. Mugatasa close the actually not the party nominates, and who is the party? I know the party there. E-committee, my party Central Committee. Vane Politburo, Vane Congress, and is that not clear? Whatever Central Committee is party, that Java Central Committee goes boy and Congress. If the others not of Vuma with a president acceptance speech here in Congress, Monat December, do you see how problematic it can become? But I think so the ZANU-PF Congress I got on mid or early December, where they were actually formally accepting the new president. He didn't accept the speech. But this can be problematic. Then we name a party at one. Tagato court. The other like a Mira party, whatever because that was their constitution. Mama lawyer Mira said, divided second, was in the constitution here, party. I am Mira. But it's a clear good, it's not an answer. Which knows the National Council. I'm going to meeting Maxine Pafa President. Wow. Agataka was a message roof, the other ends a meeting. This one group message said, I was going to left up this one group, WhatsApp group. Could you ask a message you would press the diary of they would know that with a meeting? What was the meeting? What was Arab party called? Coaching as I that president, we had to watch it, had to a president. kurufu wairambidzwa kuuya kana osiriwe ndani utoona saka utaura ndiani uzayo tina president vaitoenda vanhu vakawanda stere vachitoimba kuti tavaina president umwe akushamisa kuti president ndiani and so forth. Wangaita president wandaimirwa anga atoenda South Africa kuti aronge zverufu sekuti ndiye afunga kuti ndiye mukuru, but ukuru watoenda. But see, imagine if these people were in government, and that meant we would have been having a conflict kunyika. Are we having uyu Canada? Are we having? It can be chaotic. So the committee, technical committee says, ngatisiyane nezvemapolitical party vanodya kupi, vane maoffice kupi, kana president afa tungoziva kuti the speaker will be authorized to call a special sitting parliament as a college to elect a president, and my political parties will do what they know best. And that's what they do. My political parties know what they know what best. So after the speaker would dara person might have serious opposition. Munaito say uyu mdenda ali pa speaker oyo. Ana kana contest election. I just agenda speaker. Do you see that? So he doesn't become a candidate, he doesn't do anything because I was like a party leader when I first meeting, but I move so and so, we vote second. It's pure politics. They do it. So that's what we are recommending. But for us to agree on the recommendation, we ought to agree also that my political parties are still stable enough to be put in our constitution. Don't debate it. Can we move on that? Should I agree there? Yes.
Taking into consideration the issue of Prof, political parties in parliament and the like, criteria yekuchuza anozofana kuva president kana uyo anenge ari pachinge apa. Tikati iende futi muparliament macho imo makadaro, believe me, help kuti tinowana incredible president panguva yacho iyoyo, or inongozova futi another rainbow yemapolitical parties.
Iye kuparliament inenge regulated by constitution, itori clear motoziva kuti parliament yeIndia. So obviously they will be debating, but it's just a proper motion. We are sitting here to elect the president who takes over from the president who resigned or who died. Then proceed to present over by speaker, or even if we can put chief justice. I remember when Trump who chief justice and South Africa panasita parliament is elect a president because South Africa those who South Africa one of voter. And I voted the president direct. It's parliament which sits on the first day before they elect the speaker, they elect the president. By Mandela, someone will stand and nominate Nelson Mandela or whatever Mastaga. But one of the chief, MPs, then the chief justice presides over that. It's really very organized. And so on. Then the president is then elected there, auto guards at some point. Zvinenge zviri underlaw. Chatongoramba chete ndechekuti ngatisire kuprivate club because so far hatona mutemo kuclub kwenyu kupati kwenyu munoita sei handipamai zvinotoisa zita renyu hatozi kuti pati inonzi chii inonzi varo nechii, who is the secretary general, who is the court, we don't know. So the country must not be interested in what happens inside the political parties. Ngatigoenda kuparliament, no recommend, so there will be no problem with that. There was another, yes?
The other issue is let's say the president chooses my vice president. Those two are very constitutionally elected, constitutionally appointed.
Yes.
Right. In the event of two, we have Kanawuti, he wants to resign. Will it not be proper to my vice president? Take one of them, takes over the remaining 10, as we save a lot of time.
Okay. That's another method. But people feel we should not be given a president by you see, it's the reason we appoint one of president there was why the vice president must only act for 2 days, 3 days. Legitimacy. You know you can hire and fire your vice presidents as you work on your succession. Do you see that point? If you allow a vice president to take over for the remaining term. I can appoint, like Zvatorwana Priscilla Zvekumalawi. They actually kept a dead body, but a dead body of the president Asatafa, Auto sign was appoint so and so. Mukaso got 2 days, President Wafa, which is higher for fire, then was a stroke, was die after firing. Munuya Masia, no problem. It will be very problematic if you allow the vice president who has been appointed by the president. You would rather go with the running mate than to leave it to a president, because presidents do so many things and they can maneuver. I think Yeltsin did that kind of Putin. Yeltsin, I can't on US Day, but what I want to Putin on the day that Yeltsin was resigning and appointing Putin to be the president after about March. By March, Putin, you want to come in?
Yeah, and I want to talk national principles. Usually there's a principle here which one who appoints disappoints. And which is the principle that is true of even my cabinet ministers. They are appointed, we can't then sit as a nation and say, Atshaka, Mtulingu, because it is a Takatsamani. You get what I'm saying? Because we're not the one who are appointed. But Mukaita, even if you're appointed, it means they are not disappointed. You can't run away from it. So you give authority to this individual to do it. That authority means it's there in perpetuity. And do you want to do that like Prof says? Do you want as a nation in this person I think those are the principles that you want to wear.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. The issue of removing the running mates, to me, I'm in agreement with that one, because I think it will allow for the development of this country. On how the parliament will do it, the method and the criteria, I think that is now technical. As you said, it now needs the technical people to deal with the methods of how it is going to be done, on how they will be doing that thing. So I think I just wanted to say maybe I'm in agreement with the thing of removing running mates in the Constitution. Okay,
but we wanted to hear your views on the 1 year. Do we leave it to a political party or we go to parliament? And if we go on those the principle we will inside running mate, we are not invested. I said I know when you saw your colleague, Yaganzi, no bears and I got it for 10 years. Was Gabe Rangasingatongo Indios, Sagawa Power to I got to go to Gautombo Shanda Zadi, and that I'm sure we're saying, well, we have not to be more interested in if running mate and getting succession. How do we then go about it? So I wanted to hear your comments. If you are still thinking, I can give you are leaving it to the proposal we have here is good. Gatiye there's a parliament.
Yes, I'm agreeing with that one.
You agree with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Let the parliament do the selection. Let them appoint. Let them select the president.
Yes.
I'm agreeing with that one.
Thank you.
Just simply because if you look at the current or the local parties, what the chaos that happens within the parties, we don't want that.
Correct. All right. I think you're making the point there. Yes.
I also agree because it is important for us to draw a line of demarcation between the president of the party and the president of the country.
Okay.
As a president of the party, you owe a duty to your subjects. People believe in you. But once you become the president of the country, then you owe a duty to Zimbabweans. So in the event that you die, you resign or you're removed, then it is up to the people of Zimbabwe. And we can't say as the whole of Zimbabwe we are not choosing a president, but we are represented in parliament. So I think it's okay for the parliamentarians to present us.
Thank you very much. I'm sure my notes Murutora, that comment you have made, sorry, I'm so to do make sense. Chairman, but what you are saying there, we separate, we didn't put that point, we must separate the president of a party and a president Wenyika. And you also derive legitimacy. The closest you get to the people outside a direct election is parliament. in between elections, the closest we can get to the people of Zimbabwe is Parliament. So that's what is coming out of this Polad discussion. I find that very useful. Thank you. Yes, another.
Okay, thank you. I agree on the issue to remove the running mate. But I have a question, like right now, ruling party in a majority in parliament. And then Twitter a scenario with president Vafanas. And then we take that issue to parliament, with my parliamentarians, vakwanise kuvotera president. I just feel kuti tinongodzokera to the ruling party because ndo vanenge vaine majority in parliament. But kana isusu tikakwanisa kumova emotion yekuti ma-parliamentarians, I don't know how we are going to do it, vakwanise kunge vari more independent and vanhu vanokwanisa kungorepresenta the people kwavari kubva vasinganyo align much to their party. I don't know how we are going to make it out. Thank you.
Thanks. I think we can put a clause in the constitution that says when parliament is sitting as an electoral college, my members voting must be bound by their conscience. You know, it's not my constitution. Members must be bound by your conscience. Because otherwise they are not forced to vote for their party governor. They are not voted by secret. But if I end up as speaker, the other year, I'm going to win a speaker. I remember the last speaker in the inclusive identity, Love Momoyan. You remember that some of you were following, and there was people thought there would be a bipartisan thing, etc. But some people changed my sides out. So in Parliament, a ruling party may not be comfortable with it because you don't know what your MP will do. But the idea there, like you are saying, surely in 99.9% of the cases, the nominee of the ruling party will become the president. But the better way they would get in a semblance, it's a democratic process rather than to surrender and say, don't go me wrong, party. I think it's not good for a democracy. That's what comes up. So from your point, we can actually say, we end in my clauses and we encourage a parliament to be independent, my MPs to vote independently. Just like his it can actually be any person. Let's say Pasara 9 months and party actually ruling is not very settled. They can appoint him for this acting, but 9 months a day. It can happen, I think, in America, the president for the next 8 months, because we don't know at what point the president dies, and he can die more close to an election. All right?
Yeah. I was going to also add that, just to respond to the issue, Yvonne, the other principle that you have to always remember is, yes, we are giving local examples, but also the aspect here we create a law where the constitution is not to do it for a particular context. And because there will be a time in which a ruling party is not ZANU-PF. And there will be a time in which you don't have a political party that particularly has a supermajority. But you are adopting the principle. And like you were saying, look at the example. It was Paul Tembanyati actually in Love More. And at that time, some of us had gone into some arrangement with ZANU-PF because ZANU-PF didn't have enough numbers. And we said our majority of 10, if we do our 10 and with the ZANU-PF's 10, we would be able to bring a candidate. On the assumption that the 10 MPs that were coming from our party MDC were going to vote for Paul Temba. And they switched votes. And they voted with MDC at that time. So you are right in that. You are not right in saying it is true that they will all vote for that person. But all you have done is you have done a principle and you've said this is the structure, and this is a clear structure, and this is a stable structure that we can use.
Okay. I think if I go back to that thing, sorry for being favorite, and then get into Yvonne point the distinction we draw between a ruling party and a parliament. I understand, even when you control 2/3, but parliament in Zimbabwe is ZANU-PF, even if ZANU-PF controls 2/3 majority. You are wearing a hat here, put your parliament, and we want the country to believe in institutions rather than in either personalities or individuals. So if we go for the proposal, let's not mention political parties. Our president has died. Who takes over for the remaining term? The closest institution we have to the people is parliament. Let parliament elect the president for the remaining term. It's a much better constitutional provision than leaving these things to political parties. And like Priscilla said, don't think with ZANU-PF as the ruling party. It's not going to be forever. Or don't think about the current political parties. Just think about the ideal equity. In the future, we might just have all parties very chaotic. We don't know matter what today our president Vagasafa. And there you have heard my prayers. You have heard that. So the constitution must not be written like that. We shouldn't do that. But that's what we are doing. Can I take a preserve the proposal? Ruling party.